Today we're going to do a lesson on mixing skin tones with watercolor paint. And then after we make the skin tones, we're going to use them to create a piece of art with just some fun patterns in it. Before we get started, let's talk about skin for just a minute. So your skin is really important for many reasons, but two really important reasons, both physically and spiritually, are physically, your skin is the largest organ in your body. It's the first line of defense to protect everything on the inside of your body. So that's pretty powerful, right? That's something we need to take care of our skin because it's like our biggest defender, right? And in more like a spiritual sense, your skin is also a lot like your fingerprint, as in it's unique to you. You get your skin design all from your family, your past generations. So when you're walking around in your skin, it's like walking around with your history. And that is something to really be honored and be proud of. And I notice a lot in the classroom, kids often struggle with getting just that right skin tone. It's really tricky, right? And I think paint is the easiest for us to get a skin tone correctly. Crayons and markers can be tricky. There's not as many to choose from, and we try to mix them, but I think it's a little easier for us to use paint. So we're gonna do some practice today. I'm gonna show you some tips, and then hopefully the next time that you make a piece of art and you need to create a skin tone, you will have the confidence that you need to properly honor the person's skin that you are depicting on your piece of art. So let's get started. The element of art that we're going to focus on for this project is color, and the principle of art is contrast. Now, before we get started on our painting, we are probably going to need to make sure we gather all of our materials. You need quite a bit of materials for this project. You're going to need a piece of paper that is thick enough to paint on, okay? You're going to need a scrap piece of paper to maybe do some sketches and test your colors on. You're going to need a paintbrush and a cup of clean water. The cup doesn't necessarily have to be clean, but the water should be nice and clean. You're going to need some watercolors and then something to draw with. So a crayon would be great. And if you have them, I would really recommend oil pastels. Okay, so before we start with the mixing of the paints, I'm going to get my drawing done first. And we want to keep a pretty simple drawing with just some segmented areas, some just simple shapes that will allow us to paint these multiple skin tones next to each other. So I'm going to sketch out a few ideas on my paper. So the rectangles are representing a paper. We're just going to pretend that's a piece of paper. So one idea might be to do something really simple like a concentric circle, right? So a concentric circle is just kind of like a target, right? So then you would have a different circle, a different section for each skin tone that you make. So simple. When I say simple, super simple, right? You could do the same thing with another shape. Like it might be really nice to do a heart if you like hearts. So these would be called concentric hearts. You can do as many or as little as you'd like. The more hearts you do, more shapes you do, the more colors you can make. Something else that might be kind of fun, you could do a diamond shape that has sort of these like segmented areas. That would be really fun. Let's see if we can make kind of like a diamond here. Right, something like that. That would be fun. And you could even make some like shiny things coming off the side. Let's see, what is something else you could do? Oh, how about like a sun? You can make a sun coming up, right? And each segment of the sun, like at the rays, could be a different skin tone. That might be kind of nice. So maybe sketch out a few ideas that you might want to do. After you make your decision, go ahead and put it on your paper. So I think what I'm gonna do for mine is a rainbow. And I think part of why I want to do a rainbow is because skin tones aren't in the rainbow. So I think that's kind of a little fun and silly to make a skin tone rainbow. So I'm going to use oil pastel, and I would recommend you use that if you have that at home. And if you want to do a rainbow, one option could be to fold your paper in half. That'll help you make your rainbow a little bit more symmetrical, but you don't have to do that. I've got my centerpiece here. Let me pop a rainbow on here real quick. See how many I can fit. After you've got your shape, you could leave it very simple like this. Or it might be kind of fun and add a little bit more dimension if you take the time to add some patterns inside your shape, or actually on the outside too might be nice. So that's why I've got white and black. They're both gonna resist the paint because they're oil. If you use crayons, that will work too. And then I'm just gonna add some simple patterns on the inside of mine, just to make it more like a piece of finished art, right? The more dimension we have, the more interesting it'll look. When you're doing this, whether you're using oil pastels or a crayon, you're going to want to make sure that you press quite hard when you use these, because you want to make sure that it will resist the paint. Now you can't see the white right now, but you will be able to see it after I paint. Let's see, we've done zigzags, straight lines. How about just a wavy line? That's kind of fun. And maybe some polka dots. Maybe I'll leave the background blank. Okay, so once you have decided what you're going to paint, very simple, you can go ahead and put that aside and make your colors, all right? And so when I do that, I'm going to put my rainbow aside and grab my scrap piece of paper, and I'm gonna use the bottom of my scrap piece of paper to test my colors. Now you can make most skin tones. Here's a nice range of skin tones. This is already dried paint. You can make most skin tones with the same 5 colors, just different amounts of the same 5 colors. And those colors that you can use to make most skin tones are black, brown, orange, yellow, and red. So we're gonna do some experimenting with that. Now, if you want to use a palette to mix your paint, that's great if you have one of those at home. What I would recommend doing if you don't have a palette is to mix inside of your lid. That's a really nice place to mix your paints because it keeps them in one area. And let me show you what happens actually when your paint's dry in your palette lid. Here's some that I've mixed. You actually can reuse these paints because they're watercolor. So if, let's say I wanted to use this pretty blue right here, I would just need to put some water on it and it would work on my paper. So that is a nice reason to be using the lid of your watercolor to mix paint, because you work so hard to make these beautiful colors, you don't want to wash them out. The thing that I wouldn't mix paint on is like a paper plate, because the paint will just kind of get absorbed by the plate. So you use what you have at home, and let's make some colors. So I'm going to recommend that you start with a base color for any color that you're making. So I'm going to start with just yellow, I don't know, because that's where my brush went. So I'm going to take a little bit of yellow and pop it in my lid. Okay. Now when I'm getting paint out of my palette, I'm not pressing hard. It's more like a ballerina dancing. very lightly on our tippy toes. Okay, and you know what? I'm gonna make a couple pools of yellow. You could mix one color at a time, but I think I'm just gonna get some yellow started here because that's my lightest color. Now there's really only one way to make a color lighter with watercolor, and that's to use extra water. So water is kind of like your white when you're using watercolor paints. Some palettes have a white color, but that will kind of mute the color a little bit. It makes it a little dull. I would recommend just using water to lighten it up if you have a color that's a little too dark. So, okay, I'm gonna add some other colors to this to make some skin tones. Let's see up here, I'm just gonna add a little bit of brown. Oh, lovely skin tone. Lovely skin tone. And I've got a little tester paper here. We should test it. Lovely skin tone. Very nice. Okay, let's see if we can do some more skin tones. I'm gonna add red. And then a little bit of, I know this one isn't on my list, but it's kind of a trick. A very little teensy bit of green. Now red and green are complementary colors. They are crossed from each other on the color wheel. And oftentimes when you mix those two colors together, you get a really nice, rich tone. Let's see what we have here. Oh, that's a beautiful like sepia, burnt umber sort of color. That's a nice skin tone. Ooh, nice. Okay, so you are starting to see we're using the same colors, but kind of just different amounts and in different orders to make different colors. Let's see what else here. How about we did red, green, yellow. Let's do some brown. And a little bit of orange. Ooh, glorious. Now this one is similar to this one. It's just a little bit lighter. Just a little bit lighter. I like that one too. Oh, that's nice. Okay, and then for my last one, I'm gonna mix brown with my yellow. And then I'm gonna mix black. Now, if you are using black, it's always easier to add more a little bit at a time than if you add too much and it sort of takes over the whole color. It's a pretty strong color, so you'd want to just put a little bit in at a time. Oh, nice. This is like a beautiful chestnut color. Oh, there we go. Beautiful. Okay, so I've got 4 lovely skin tones here, and I think that's probably what I have 4 sections on my rainbow, so that's a good amount of color for me to paint my rainbow. So I'm going to paint my rainbow. Before I do that, I'm going to show you a finished one that I have to give you a little glimpse. I did one earlier. I did a diamond earlier. So you'll notice when you paint, you can kind of, it will cover up your lines a little bit. So when you're done, something that you might want to do is to take your oil pastel again and trace over those lines. So I'm gonna do it on half so that way you can see the difference. You see how much nicer that looks I've traced again. This looks way more finished, right? So when your painting is dry, you might want to trace. And if you use oil pastels, you'll have the option to add more details. Now, I painted mine. I'm gonna suggest that when you paint your background, you choose one color. That way the emphasis is on our skin tone, and the background will give us like a nice contrast, just one simple color for the background. Now for this one, I have this glitter paint. I don't know if you can see the shiny on the screen or not, but it's a liquid glitter paint. Oh my gosh, isn't that glorious? Oh, I just love it. So I use that for the background. And that, you use whatever you have at home. And I'm thinking that I should go back in on top in the background and make some line designs. So when you use oil pastels, you will have the freedom to do that. Crayons might not work as well. Maybe zigzags in the background? Let's see, how about, yeah. Now this looks like more like a finished piece. So after your painting, you might want to go back over and add some more details. All with skin tones. How lovely. Awesome. Well, I am going to take some time to paint my rainbow. And I can't wait to see what your skin tone paintings look like. And I can't wait to hear from you and hopefully eventually see you. Happy creating, artists. Bye.